Live from our studios on QCell Avenue. Good evening, viewers, from wherever you're watching us from. It's good to be back to yet another interesting edition of the Youth Dialogue, and I am Jul Denjai from wherever you're watching us. You know how we do it. You know how we vibe on this Youth Dialogue. So today, it's not like any other day. It's an extraordinary day. I have His Excellency the President. And if I say the president, you know who I'm talking about, right? The commander-in-chief. Must feel cold, you guys are surprised, right? The commander-in-chief of the University of the Gambia Student Union, His Excellency Ismaila Fadera. His Excellency, I'm not guy, then you're it's Adama Barrow. How I wish.
Well, okay. It's Ismaila Fadera here in the building. Basically, this is the first interview since winning the election. So it's a pleasure to be here this evening.
Thank you, Ismaila, and congratulations, for your victory. I know it has not been an easy one. UTG elections can be all crazy and all of that. But I love the fact that this one was particularly mature. It was calm than the previous UTG elections and all of that. That goes to show the kind of leader that you will be. Let us start with when you were approached and then the IEC announced that, Ismaila, you are the winner. How does that felt?
Well, to be honest, it was emotional in the sense that you have supporters, or you have people who looked up to you, and you happen to be the president of almost 10,000 students, and all of them coming to you, trying to offer their prayers, their words of congratulatory message. I think for some reason I was emotional, and there was tears of joy, of course. Yeah.
I know how it feels. Election can be so tense. Like, oh, will I win? Will I not win? Even though you know that all the policies are there, and then you have what it takes to actually take the university to the next level. Sure. But for those of you who do not know Ismail, aside from he is the newly elected president of the University of the Gambia Student Union, Ismaila Fadera is also a development studies student, 400 level, and he has also been known for his advocacy, and he also previously served as the president of the School of Arts and Sciences Student Association, and he is also a prominent young person who is also into politics. We will come to that, Lisa. So what do you think that the students of the University of the Gambia saw in you to say, yes, we are going to elect him to be our next president?
Well, thank you very much. Because over the past 10 months, I have the privilege to lead a diverse student body and executive council. And like I always said, I want students to gauge me for the past 10 months. Because like you said in your introductory message, I serve as the president of the Social Science and Humanities Students Association. And alongside my executive council, we have done some amazing jobs, and the records are there for students to see. So track record, basically student-driven impact was what fueled my elections in UTG. Because as president of the Social Science and Humanities Students Association, there were institutional impact that we've registered as council. Under my leadership, SOSA as council was able to introduce the first ever executive code of conduct. Executive code of conduct basically guides behaviors of executive members within the council. But if you also look at the constitution, section 36 of the SOSA constitution, calls for an advisory body. This advisory body serves as the watchdog between the council and the rest of the students' body. And this advisory board was created under my leadership, and we have some prominent former student leaders, who were serving SOSA. Basically they became part of that committee. But then it's not only about institutions. We also have some impacts that we registered, where we secured a 100,000 scholarship package for social students at Yona Islamic Microfinance. And then we have also conducted campus-based research, that was also done under my leadership. And if you looked at internship and career placement, we were also able to secure 14 internship opportunities for social students at Access Bank. And we have 2 students currently in Nigeria doing their internship training. So basically, the leadership of Ismaila Fadera could be gauged on the past 10 months. Aside from the university, we have done some amazing job in the country that has to do with climate activities, that has to do with youth advocacy. But when you talk about Ismaila Fadera, it is in the university, it could be gauged for the records that was done over the past 10 months as president of the Social Sciences and Humanities Students Association.
So how was it like for you, the atmosphere, the campaign? Because obviously, with all the achievements that you registered, in your previous role as the president, it shouldn't have been really tough for you to convince people that you are the perfect fit for this job. How was the atmosphere like, the election leading to the campaign and all of that? I know UTG life can be really tense sometimes.
Well, thank you very much. I think we run a very peaceful campaign, and kudos to Interschool Alliance for Change, because we have set of individuals, working behind the scenes, that are subject specialists. We call them the strategists. They were responsible for preparing each candidate. From announcing your candidacy, you were also able to face the Electoral Commission, because the Electoral Commission serves as the first point of call, where, you will face set of commissioners, and at the end of the day, they will scrutinize you, ask questions on your policy, and from there, the candidacy will be announced. And after the announcement of the candidacy, now the real battle starts, where you will face students from various classes, where you will walk from school to school, from Banjul to Kanifing, Kanifing to Faraba. So that is where the real test comes into play. But I'm glad that the Interschool Alliance for Change, under my leadership, we have done tremendously well as far as the class-to-class campaign is concerned. Because one thing stood out for my team and I is the gender representation that is presented by the Interschool Alliance for Change. I think that, has set the ball rolling, because you have 6 men and you have 6 female and 6 male. So that definitely stood out for us. And, kudos to the entire team and our amazing supporters, because they are the energy behind our campaign.
Mashallah, I was really happy when I see the composition. Okay, 6 male, 6 female. I was like, I'm finally we've seen that there is just gender equality and all of that. So was it a deliberate move, or was it based on merit? How was the selection process done in your team?
I think the selection was, based on merits, I would say. Based on merits in the sense that, you look at each of the female candidates. You looked at Nurse Nyima Sanyang. Everybody in the 4 corners of the country knows the impact that this lady brings on the table. You look at Fatou Dabo. Fatou Dabo is the first tutorial chairperson of the of Ecomansa, basically. And then she is also the first female education minister of that school. You look at, Aisa Ba. Aisa Ba currently serves as a member of the audit committee, and she also serves in the finance committee. You looked at Fatou Kine Sanyang. She's a whole CEO of Yoba Kitchen and currently serving as the welfare minister of the biggest research in the development unit. You also look at Vivian Mendy. Vivian Vide, is currently serving as the deputy sport minister of the Social Science and Humanities Students Association. You also looked at Adam Dow. You know, all these ladies in one way or the other, if you look at their track record, they serve the university in one way or the other. So the conversation for the Interschool Alliance for Change is no more on women empowerment. We move from the narratives. The narrative should now be putting women in power and putting women in leadership. I'm glad that 4 out of 6 won their position, and adding 3 to the composition, we were able to, won 7 seats. And kudos to our, opponents too, because, they were also able to have at least one female who won the election in the passing of Asiatu Jallow. Yeah. So we have a balanced council.
Yeah, it's so balanced. So this is going to be a nice one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
yes.
we are all looking forward to that, and we are all excited. For some reason, I think this is the first time I am building that much interest, in UTG elections. Really.
Well,
yeah,
because that's good.
Absolutely.
Good,
yeah, and aside from university life also and the achievement that you've registered, people are also talking about your achievements, within the community. How do you intend to balance your impact? Let us talk about now your impact, in the community, because that is also one of the key highlights of this election. People were like, social media was buzzing with messages talking about the impact you really have at the community level.
Well, I think it all started for me from the community. From the community in the sense that I serve as the former CEO of Focus on Brikama. Focus on Brikama, how does this come about? It basically started as a WhatsApp, forum where we highlight or where we talk on individuals that have to do with Brikama. My friend will say you are too Brikama centric. Okay, so rooted in the community, serving the community. I mean, basically there are things, when you look into the community, it says a lot about you. So it was not difficult for me to balance the community work, because I see university as a community. As a community in the sense that you have individuals from various sort of communities. We all come together, and that is what makes the university campus a community. So I see university as a community, and that community I have been engaged with the community. So I see no reason why, I should say, okay, let me leave the university and concentrate on the community work. Basically, the actions that we do in the community, we fuel it back to the university. And maybe I'm not surprised seeing, public being so glued to the UTG elections. It says a lot about the work that we have done.
Absolutely. I mean, it goes to show that once you're a young person, you should really be concerned, because development really starts at the community level. It determines a lot if young people are getting up. I am a really big fan of young people really engaging in politics and contributing. But also I look at young people at the community level. What are you doing to change the lives of your own people before you talk about the the central government? So in terms of your policies and programs, because really in your former position, you've done so well. I must say I'm really impressed with the achievement that you were able to register. But UTG, it's different from the student union, is different from the association. And like we mentioned at the beginning, the challenges are enormous. I know that now the infrastructure is there, that is like becoming a thing of the past for the UTG students. But notwithstanding, UTG students still have a lot of challenges that they are confronted with. What are your priorities, or what is the #1 list on your priority list?
Thank you very much. We presented series of policies. I think as presidential candidate, I presented 6 policies. And these 6 policies, one among them is the 40% tuition fee. The 40% tuition fee, we were able to achieve that at social level. But it will also interest you to know that under the current leadership, Mohamed Galan and his team, were able to move the scholarship package from 50 students to 150 students. And then as president of the Social Science and Humanities Students Association, my team and me were able to, generate $100,000 in scholarship for social students. I believe as, sub-association president, and now as president of the main union, where I will serve as the president of all sub-associations, I believe the section 12 of the UTG SU Constitution 2021 is very clear. The president serves as an embodiment of the students' union. So, that talks a lot, and I believe under my leadership, my team and I should be able to facilitate scholarship package for those students, because if you look at the social media, every now and then you will see UTG students, either areas, either the 40% scholarship. But then as union, that represents the interest of the students. We should be able to tap funds from institutions, from genuine Gambians that are always ready to support. So that is part of my policy. That is the Education Fund Program. And as council, I'm not going to say as council in waiting, because whether they are now. As council, we have started work where we reach out to institutions, where we reach out to individuals, Gambians, and I know philanthropists or genuine Gambians are listening to or are going to watch this interview. I am appealing to all of them. They come to the aid of the UTG students so that the 40% scholarship. As council, the 24th Executive Council, we could also be able to move it from 150 to 200 or to 250 or to even 300. It's possible. It's possible. That is one thing that we want to achieve. And then if you also looked at my policy, you have the UTG, reintroduction of the UTG Donor Conference. The UTG Donor Conference was introduced by an alliance candidate in the name of Coca. When I was, writing this policy, I reached out to him. He gave me, some very good ideas that if put into practice, we should be able to bring institutions in one roof, not only institutions, but we could be able to bring Gambians, so that we could look at issues that affects the UTG students. And that donor conference would serve as a platform for not only networking, but then internship opportunities could be something that can be derived. It is important to know that we have Gambians that are always ready to support, but if you don't knock on their doors, it will be difficult for them to come on board. That is one thing that I want to unlock under my leadership. But then you also look at policy number 3 that talks on establishment of the Think Tank Center. Think Tank Center, moreover, is going to serve as an idea hub. Idea hub in the sense that UTG, SU, have created some amazing precedents. But to what capacity are the university, benefiting from them? I could go on and name individuals. Even recently, you have Nyaninka Manja, who, once came to this office. You have the likes of Mohamed Galan currently. You have Alpha MK Low. You have Kemo Conte. You name them. All these individuals, in one way or the other, I believe they have the expertise to help the current council, and that is one thing that we are going to address. And I have started engaging some of them, and hopefully we are going to see Think Tank Center that will bring UTG former presidents. And then this is not only limited to the former president, but then we will also have presidents of the sub associations. We will have all of them on board, and at the end of the day, they will help. These people will help us with, their expertise, sharing ideas on how we're going to tackle issues that affect the various sub-associations. So that is one thing that is dear to my heart. But then you also look at partnership and cooperation. It's very important. Probably maybe Julde could also help the Information and Communication Ministry under the dynamic leadership of Ibrahim Mbai, who is also a certified journalist, to try and have a partnership with QTV. This is what we want to achieve. And Currently, we have partnerships that was signed by the 23rd Executive Council. This includes GCCI, it includes Event Center, among others. So we want to strengthen those partnerships and also look into new partnership that will benefit UTG students. But career development and internship too is important.
Very important.
You know,
it's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
Really?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. Like you have, various sub-associations. It is disheartening. I always tell students to be in UTG after 4 years. Yes. You cannot even have 2 months internship opportunity where you can go and show the skill that you learn. I was in my office as president of the Social Science and Humanities Students Association. When one of the 14 students, I will not be able to unveil the name, one of the 14 students that benefited from the internship opportunity at Access Bank came to me and gave me $500. Wow. I will never forget that. That was touching. Imagine a student giving you $500, for something that you've told them, a promise that you made. So under my leadership, I'm calling on institutions, Gambians that are, always ready to absorb UTG students to come and give us internship opportunity. Exactly. And that is one thing that we also want to achieve under my leadership. And another very interesting thing, you've said you've been in Faraba. If you go to the bus stop, you see our sisters, you see our brothers standing on that harsh weather condition. So we want to have seats at the bus stop. Not only seats, but we also want to have seats, we also want to have canopies. And I am glad to inform students that we have the Tertiary and Higher Education Trust Fund, that have already, looked into that. And hopefully, students will have a dignified environment under my leadership. So basically, that is my policy. But aside from that, each of the elected council members have their various policies. And as president, it is only okay to work with them and coordinate.
Exactly.
I'm more of a team player. Anybody who knows Ismail, I will tell you, I'm a team player. I don't base my work based on individual.
Honestly, we really need to move away from that, from individual politics and all of that, looking at the real policies that will impact the lives of people. Because if you look at the internship opportunities that you mentioned, it's very important. I see a lot of university graduates who are like, they every day having their papers looking for jobs. And it's very difficult because now, if you don't have the work experience, it's very difficult for institutions to hire you. So, but with internships, you're going to school and also you're working. It really helps you. Once you're done with your university education, you can easily be enrolled in the job market. But we've seen a lot of graduates, but they do not end up translating in the workforce, which is really, really a challenge. This is really good. We only hope and pray that you'll be able to do this effectively and efficiently.
Yes.
But also in terms of those that are going to benefit, I know it's a challenge. Ismaila is very good, he's a team player. But again, because you served as a president of the Social Sciences Association, we're like, okay, hope all the opportunities will not be taken to those students.
Okay, because if you look at the council, it's diverse in the sense that you have executive members from agriculture, executive members from nursing, executive members from law, JSA, BPA, you understand? So, it's a combination of different, different schools. But when, as president of the Social Science and Humanities Students Association, when we generated the 100,000 scholarship package, I could say I should be part of the committee, but I officially rescued myself from the committee and allowed, the various ministers and the vice president serve as the, chairperson of that task force committee that we created, look into the scholarship criteria. So as president, I'm not, now I would say I'm not there to represent SOSA, but the entire university at large.
That's a good thing. And in terms of accountability also, what is your government, let us put it that way, doing to ensure that there is that accountability and transparency? Because we've seen in the previous, executives, we've seen they've been alleged to have involved in corruption, scandals and all of that. So what are you doing?
Thank you very much. I think Isa is watching this interview. Isa Baditis, that is the elected elected Auditor General. For the first time, we're going to have a public auditing system. Public auditing system in the sense that previously, you know, previous auditors, let me say, you know, the audit report is, you know, presented at the Congress and shared with LB. But ISA is now proposing a policy that, you know, under her leadership, the audit report, where you look at the performance and the rating of executive members is going to be made public. Public in the sense that every student will now have the opportunity to see the performance of Ismaila Fadera. Accountability is something that I don't joke with. And, you know, the Secretary General, Basis Mohamed Ba, also, you know, came with a policy to have what we call policy consolidation. You know, all the things that I said here are going to be put on black and white for students to see, and he will be reminding each of the executive members, Ismaila, this is what you say, and it is 3 months into your leadership. How far with your education fund program? That is one thing that really interests me.
I like that.
As far as
then you will not have the issue of Wawahead. You know, it's very common with politicians.
Exactly.
Like, I said this, but you know, it's during campaign.
You know, Mohamed is a law student, so I would have to say thank you, Mohamed, for bringing us that policy, and Isa also, you know, for proposing a policy where we will pass where she, you know, wants to sponsor a bill at the LB to have, you know, the public audit system where students will have the opportunity to read, you know, performance of executive members in their various group chats. And Ismaila Fadera don't want to be graded 40% or fair. If I should be graded outstanding as president, you know, thank you very much.
When you know, we all celebrated Ismaila Fadera, I feel like he is the one, and all of a sudden I'm low grade, like what really went wrong? So we wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that because I know the future is the young people in this country, and I know that with young people like you, we are really safe. So we don't want a case of where you see, even young people are messing up in their positions.
This is what Ismaila Fadera, or this is what the 24th Executive Council say, and they are not able to achieve. That is why policy consolidation is something that I look forward to, where students will see, and Mohamed will be there to remind us of each the policy that we listed. So accountability, be rest assured, will definitely
top notch. No, don't worry. I will be one of the auditors.
No problem.
From time to time, in 6 months to come, I will invite him again to say, Ismaila, you said A, B, and C. Let's see how far you've gone. You know, we really need to fix this country, and I think with people like you, inshallah, we're gonna make that happen.
We'll do our best.
Yeah, I know it's gonna be a challenge. Leadership, it's not easy anywhere. You know, it requires concerted effort from everybody to come together. And I'm glad that you mentioned the issue of partnership. Because in most cases, the reason why a lot of people fail, or organizations or associations, is because we don't partner. Ki munge def lele, ki munge def li. And if we have different ideology clash, like, it's a problem. I see you as my enemy. No, Ismaila mom did it. You know, and I think with new initiatives, young people now, I want to believe that will become a thing of the past.
It has to start with us. We have to change the status quo. And, you know, be rest assured, each of the policy, like I said, is Ismaila Fadera who proposed it, but it is the 24th Executive Council that is going to constitute it. You know, how are we going to execute it? The information and communication is basically going to be the one to inform students of a particular policy. The secretariat will be there to take, you know, notes of what is happening. Finance is basically going to, you know, do the embossment of funds. Gender and health will be there to ensure that, you know, there is safety for students. And, you know, the education and research will be there. The auditor will be there. So basically, it's 12 people, and each of these, except the president and the vice president, they're all going to have deputies, and they will have committee members. So if there is an execution of a particular policy, we all come together and we take credit. That is how you know, that's leadership for me.
That's leadership. No, I'm liking it. You know, Legi, you see the reason why I introduce him as His Excellency, the President. So viewers, we will take a short break. After the break, the program continues. Do stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is QTVU Dialogue and I am your host, Julden Jai, and I'm here. With me is Ismaila Fadera, the newly elected president of the University of the Gambia Student Union. And we were talking about a very important topic before we actually take that break. We were talking about partnership and also the opportunities that are available for young people at the University of the Gambia under your leadership. So now you also talked about the issue of transportation. I know it's going to be a challenge because that's like one of the most challenging issue confronting UTG students. With the Faraba issue, it's really a challenge. Yep. So what are the, realistically, how are you going to address that?
Thank you very much. I think transportation, was the most talked about topic in as far as this year's elections is concerned. And as a leader, as a truthful leader, you have to be honest with the electorates. Because like you said, 3 presidents stood on this very chair, sat on this very chair to talk about, the issue of transportation. And, but we have to, go through the contractual agreement that MOHAS has with GTSC. As students leaders, we have to be factual with each other.
Yeah.
And part of my campaign, this was a talking point. In every single class that you go, students will ask you this question. But it's a concern to all of them, and we are all feeling it. But now the agreement that MOHAS has, because the transportation is complex in the sense that you have different players in it. You have MOHAS there, you have GTSC, and the contractual agreement between MOHAS and GTSC, $36 million is for 20 buses. Now, but as a development major, I have been telling students we should be able to have what we call data-driven advocacy. Data-driven advocacy in the sense that if you go to Faraba today, check the number of minibuses that GTSC is sending. And what is the capacity of those minibuses compared to the big buses? The big buses can carry 60 to 65 students. Anywhere you are, if you go out, you do your finding, just be at the bus stop. If students see minibuses coming, their morals are always down. But anytime they see big buses, then everybody will smile and be like, okay, this big bus is capable of carrying a lot of students. Now, if the agreement, what I'm saying is, if the agreement between MOHAS and GTSC is 20 buses, now what is now stopping GTSC from helping UTG students with big buses? That is data-driven advocacy that under my leadership and with the help of the Technical and Logistic Minister, Ibrahim Shusho, this should be part of the discussion that we're going to have with the stakeholders. But it will also interest you to know that we have 2 buses currently that are donated by the president, thanks to, Usman Jassi. Those 2 buses are currently lying down in Brikama out of service. And, the current council, under the dynamic leadership of Mohamed Galan, engaged management so that those buses could be maintenance. If those 2 buses are maintenance, it could be added to the 20 buses, that GTSC is providing to take it to 22. But as leaders, we should also be factual and, commend MOHAS of the work that they are doing. Some months ago, we have seen, MOHAS engaging Gambia Transport Union, where private sectors could also be, invited to come and utilize the opportunity that is in Faraba, because GTSC alone cannot do it. And that is one thing that we want to do. Once we, officially start, we have to knock on the doors of MOHAS to ensure that, Gambia Transport, I hope Umar Sise is listening.
He should,
he should be. No. Mr. President, we are coming for you, please.
Yeah, you should. Yeah. We need, in order for sustainable development to happen, all hands should be on deck to ensure that we get this going and running. Because after all, this country belongs to all of us. And once it's developed, all of us are going to enjoy.
Thank you.
But once, we are facing challenges, because university students, University of the Gambia is the highest learning institute in the Gambia. So if the students that are learning there are not learning in a conducive environment, it's going to be a challenge.
Exactly.
So Lola, with quality education also goes with when the necessary infrastructure, you know, convenience, buses are there, I can go to far, but it's not far. I keep saying it. Like, it's not far. Why? Because bus be the far, like you for hours standing there waiting, even students are there, you'll be waiting there for hours and then you are late for your lectures, you go there, struggle, come back, all of that challenge. So a lot of people, then you will lose interest along that, and it's not helpful.
I was in school on Monday, right? The last bus came right sometime around 7:15, and you know the condition that students went through, you know, is disheartening. Yeah. Disheartening in the sense that there was a bus that was sent, and you have only one main jet. Imagine. So, you know, maybe the authorities are not in fact aware of the things that we are facing. That is why we're going to use data. We're going to, you know, rely heavily on data-driven advocacy. I'm not going to sit on this chair and say we're going to procure buses, because that becomes an elephant. That becomes an elephant promise. Yeah. And I don't want students to be seeing me around the campus and say, Mr. President, you said you're going to, when you know that is just an empty promise. What we can do is to ensure that we've reached out to the stakeholders to ensure that if the contract says 20 buses, let us have big buses that can carry students, and as we have done enough research on that. But then the partnership and cooperation that I talked on earlier, we should be able to, you know, force or at least, you know, talk to the ministry to ensure that Gambia Transport Union, you know, that was engaged. I could remember months ago, when we saw that news, we were all, you know, happy. And the president of the Gambia Transport Union should now come to Faraba for assessment.
He should. And, you know, don't worry.
No, we live in the same area.
Exactly.
He's my brother, so that's fine. I know how to tackle this.
They are troublemakers.
I know how to tackle this one with him.
They are troublemakers.
Yeah, but for transportation, I believe for the next 3-4 months, we should be able to engage the stakeholders. And the donor conference too. We will reach out to institutes, and hopefully we can have one Gambian company or one philanthropist that will say, okay, you know what, UTG students, here is a bus that I'm donating for you. It's all possible. Yeah, I think I'll do night prayers on that for us to achieve that.
I'll keep begging, please, philanthropists, if you're watching, government, civil society, all of you, come on board. This is our university.
Yeah, like you said, it's the biggest tertiary institution, like Prof will say.
And you know, development cannot be postponed.
That's what he
always says. So in terms of also engaging your opponents, how has it been like for them? And will you bring them on board? Because they also have great ideas, you know, during their campaign promise. And Gambia, one thing that opponents in, like normally, we don't use their ideas that much. But I want to believe that will not happen in this case.
Well, kudos to my opponents, you know, Usman Balde. You know, he has run an amazing campaign. It was one of the most peaceful campaigns, you know, that UTG have, you know, ever witnessed. On my side, I haven't, you know, seen any message that is with regards to the presidential candidate where, you know, it was hostile. It was all peace. Even on the day of convention, you know, we exchanged hugs, and, you know, my remarks to him and his remarks to me is, let's see who is going to invite who for barbecue. And now I think I'm going to be the one to invite him for the barbecue. But it is important to note that, you know, the council also have, you know, individuals from his team, like the welfare and culture is from their team, the finance is from their team, the technical and logistics is from their team, and you also have agriculture from their team. Politics is now over. Now what is important is for us to have a united council that is, you know, sealed on one purpose, and that purpose is to deliver the promise that we have for the students. So under my leadership is open to every university, every bona fide student of the University of the Gambia.
Even the runaway students.
Thank you.
Of the University of the Gambia. We will come back.
Thank you.
We will come back. Because the reason why I ask, a lot of times, when the person is your opponent, you are not in the same side, and the person does not even, you don't get to be invited. And even with policy and discussions, and it's normally very toxic. You see students still after elections, and then you come, it's not even university life, generally.
Beyond university.
Beyond university. That is our society. Like, we keep politicking and all of that. At some point, it is a never-ending politic. You know, and then we're so distracted that we don't get the time to actually focus on what really is important for our country. So, yeah.
But you know what, one thing that is also important to note is the council is going to have a justice minister that is appointed by the president in consultation with the executive. And then there is also an established code of conduct. That is, once swearing, I should, you know, lead a good example. And when I say I should lead a good example, it has to filter down on each of the elected council. There is a code of conduct that is going to not only guide our behaviors, but even our conduct within the university. So we should be able to set good examples.
Does that include students, Tamit?
Well, the but I would say, you know, students serve as a replica of the type of leadership that they, you know, that they put in. If Ismaila Fadera is confrontational. Basically, my supporters are also going to be like that. But if my supporters sees me as a good example or a good role model, they should all be able to emulate the behaviors that Ismaila Fadera exhibit. And everybody knows Ismaila Fadera as a good exhibit of a good behavior. And I am urging on all my supporters to, you know, emulate, you know, the type of leadership that my council and I are going to bring on the table. It's family, I would say.
So in terms of the student-lecturer relation, you know, sometimes, you know, it's not every time, but every now and then you hear issues with either lecturers don't come to class, they don't respect time, they don't attend this, they don't do, or they have been unfair. How do you handle that?
All right. Thank you very much. Like, I would also have to credit, because each of these ministers, in one way or the other, I can talk on the policy that they present. The vice president, you know, serve as this representative of the students at Senate. Senate serve as the highest academic decision body. That is where, you know, grades issues are discussed. That is where missing grades are discussed. You know, and under the dynamic leadership of you know, Adam Dow, like, you know, she always say representation is meaningless if the people being represented are not informed. So, you know, that is one area that Adam, you know, so you see how amazing these ladies are, you know, so that is one area that Adam is definitely going to help, you know, counsel in. And see, a top-notch policy on her policy is where she talks on pre-Senate reporting system. She is officially going to work with, you know, presidents, vice presidents of various sub-associations, including the education and research minister, to at least, you know, have an opinion from various sub-associations. Let's say when you go to JSA, what is affecting the journalists, what is affecting the social sciences, what is affecting those in SSA, what is affecting those in EDUSHA. She should be able to, you know, file that report, and during the Senate discussion, she is going to present the students' position paper. And you know, there will also be post-Senate reporting system where students will also know the discussion that happened in Senate, because that is very important. You know, that is why I've always been telling students representation is meaningless if the people being represented are not informed. And lecturers and students' relationship is something that, you know, falls under her jurisdiction, and she should be able to advise the council on that. So as the council meets regularly on every monthly basis, we should be able to touch on each of the issues that affect our students, and students will have irregular updates on that.
Being the leader of students is not easy. You know, we can be stubborn.
It's
a challenge.
It's a challenge, but I believe that challenge, we look, you know, we are up for it. That is why they voted for us.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. So now, civic duties and responsibilities is a very important matter. I know that it's not really connected to your mandate as the president of the SU, UTG SU. But again, it's very important, you know, teaching students to know their civic duties and responsibilities is very, very important. Is this also, will this be part of things that you will happen, especially when students come together annually to celebrate or commemorate something, maybe cultural events and all of that?
Well, thank you very much. This is very important because the university serves as the highest tertiary institution. This is where I believe we could diagnose all problems that happen in the country. For example, if we have issues that affects media and communications, we should be able to have a research at JSA. If it has to do with something that has to do with act or law, the law students should be there. If it has to do with development, you have those in the humanities that could, you know, handle that. Even biology, at EDUSA you also have it, even business. And each of these schools, in one way or the other, they all have community outreach. Currently at the university, we are having what we call JSA Week. That is the journalists, JSA Week, Association Week. And they are having community activities. In fact, I think, you know, part of the community that they selected was Faraba Banta. You know, so each of these schools or each of these sub-associations in the university, in one way or the other, they all contribute to the community work. But we also have education and research ministry. And, you know, this education and research ministry, you know, is going to conduct research that could be beneficiary to the country. But we have a civic responsibility in the sense that anything that is affecting the country, ministers or institutions or companies can be able to utilize the Faraba campus. And we, UTG students or UTG Faraba campus can serve as that diagnosis center where we could look into the things that affects the university, and our doors are widely open for them. Yeah.
So I know time it's not on our side, but let's just talk about this thing. Like, what advice will you give to students or young people in general? Because I believe that now you are representing the young people, hence you represent the president of the SU, and the SU comprised of students from all backgrounds, from across the country. What advice would you give them, especially now that we are in an election year? And we know it can be really crazy. You have politics of, you know, division there, politics of insult, hatred here and there, cyberbullying. All of these things are there. What advice would you give to young people?
Well, my advice to every young person of this country is let's engage in constructive dialogue. Constructive dialogue is important. And my journey or my growth is centered on this. Julde, yeah, you will have constructive dialogue with me, but once it is done, it is over, and we look, you know, into each other's eye as brothers and sisters. You know, where your right stops is where someone's rights begins. You know, so as young people of this country, we engage in constructive dialogue. We all have our different political affiliations, but that should not bring enmity among us, you know. And you know, this has been my values, this has been my core principles. I'll engage with you, but if it is toxic, it's just a matter of me leaving, going to another space that is peaceful for me. And you know, I want us to see each other like that, and at the end of the day, you know, we're all going to live harmoniously well as it is enshrined in the national anthem and the national pledge. Basically, that is, you know, one word: constructive engagement, constructive dialogue is one way to, you know, see each other. Because if it becomes toxic, it brings enmity and, you
unnecessarily.
know, unnecessarily.
Yeah, exactly. And then you don't get to focus on the most important things.
Yeah, most definitely.
So, yeah, I've been alerted that the time it's done. But thank you very much, Ismaila. We wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you.
And be rest assured that our doors are always open.
Yes,
whenever you have initiative at the University of the Gambia, feel free to come. This platform is for you specifically. It's for young people. So whatever initiatives, programs that you have at the university level, we are more than happy to host you. And we really wish you all the best in your endeavors.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Like I said, this is the first interview that I have since, you know, being elected as the president of the UTG Students Union. And you've said something very important. I know we have not yet get into office, and QTV is, you know, rolling their shoulders openly for us. I think this is a good news that the 24th Executive Council will have a very friendly media engagement. And we have a certified Gambian journalist, Ibrahim Mbai.
He is my son, by the way. Yeah, I'm so proud of him.
Your mom is here offering, you know, cooperations for us. And I look forward to a strong partnership that we will be having with media officials, including QTV. Thank you very much.
So if you are to round it up in 30 seconds, everything that we discussed, what would be your closing, final?
Well, final remarks in 30 seconds is we're going to have a pragmatic leadership. We're going to have a progressive leadership that is dedicated to the service of UTG students. We're there to represent the interests of the students for the next 12 months, hold us accountable on everything that was said in class-to-class campaign, school-to-school campaign, and wishing you all a very blessed night. Thank you.
Thank you. That is Ismaila Fadera, the newly elected president of the University of the Gambia Students Union. And we were talking about something very, very important: accountability, pragmatism, progress. It's very important to all of you that are watching, and especially to the university students. The supplementary voter registration, it's on. Please go and register if you are 18. Yeah, please go and register if you are 18. Or if you will turn 18 before the 5th of December, you are eligible to vote and register. Please go. This is all we have for you, Ismaila. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. Till we come your way next week for another edition of the Youth Dialogue. It's a bye from me.